Here is an update that, frankly speaking, no one was prepared for. In recent days, observers from around the world have been submitting fresh data on 3I Atlas. But new images from Spain, Thailand, and Norway have turned out to be so similar and yet so unusual that the entire picture has changed dramatically. They confirm neither disintegration nor destruction, nor any of the dramatic processes many were expecting. Instead, the footage hints at something far more subtle and complex. Let's try to calmly break down everything that is known. Let's start with Spain. On the night of November 22nd local time, a series of long exposure shots were obtained in Extremadura. The observer used a brightness filter and maximum exposure time to gather as much light as possible. The result was so clean it surprised even those long experienced in photometry. The background shows the movement of stars, leaving characteristic trails. But the central zone of 3I Atlas remains almost stationary, as if anchored in space. There are no ruptures, no splits in intensity, no traces of the structure falling apart. On the contrary, the core appears dense, concentrated, and clearly defined. For an object many suspected of instability, this behavior is completely atypical. But there is another detail that received particular attention in Spain. It concerns the light along the forward axis, that same asymmetric glow which was blurry and soft in the previous series of images. Now it has become sharper, more localized, as if it has intensified or become more ordered. If 3I Atlas were gradually fading or disintegrating, we would see the opposite dynamic. The glow would have scattered, the structure would have become chaotic. But here, the opposite is true. Nothing indicates a weakening. It seems that the energy source shaping this region is either maintaining its power or even increasing slightly. After Spain, let's look at the observations from Thailand. This frame was captured under far from ideal conditions. Dense cloud layers periodically obscured that part of the sky, and transparency was unstable. Yet, even under these circumstances, a clear brightness profile was captured. The central glow is almost perfectly circular. If contrast enhancement is applied, it's visible that it forms a smooth, closed ring without shifts or deformations. The outer zone shows a multi-layered structure, a halo seemingly composed of several thin shells, gradually weakening with distance from the main body. The most striking thing is the coincidence of data from Thailand and Spain. Despite completely different observing conditions, different instruments, and different viewing angles, the brightness distribution is practically identical. There are no significant discrepancies that could be blamed on the atmosphere or equipment. This is the kind of consistency that only arises when dealing with a real, stable, physical process, not technical artifacts. And this brings us to the frame from Norway, the one that sparked intense online discussion. The filming was done in a Bortle Class 4 zone, where the sky is sufficiently dark, but still not perfect. The exposure was relatively short, just over an hour. And despite this, the tail of 3I Atlas turned out to be surprisingly detailed. A barely noticeable bend is visible within it, a subtle twist stretching along the jet. It looks as if the ejected material isn't just moving outward, but is slightly twisting. This curl cannot be a coincidence. A similar effect appears when an object is rotating, and the ejection is uneven, faster on one side and slower on the other. This is a direct sign of rotation, not disintegration. The most interesting part begins when you compare all three observations. Spain, a perfectly symmetrical core, and a sharp forward zone. Thailand. A multi-layered, expanding halo. Norway. A curved tail indicating rotation. When pieced together, a general picture emerges. The object's center remains stable and surprisingly resilient. The outer layers are growing. The halo is expanding faster than previous forecasts, and the tail is becoming more structured. This combination cannot be explained by the object's destruction, but it fits perfectly with a model of a stable core, active rotational ejection, and an accelerating halo. Another frame has been added to this series, a wide-angle shot from Virginia. It shows an extremely faint continuation of the tail, extending much further than previously assumed. The tail is long, thin, but not chaotic. The structural lines are clear and smooth, as if 3I Atlas is ejecting material into space according to a clearly defined scheme. And even so, the central part remains even and symmetrical, without the slightest trace of instability. The strangest thing is that only the periphery is changing. In all images, the halo is increasing. The forward glow is becoming brighter, as if the area of activity is shifting outward. The tail is acquiring more and more fine detail. But the core, that central circle, not only remains stable but seems to be becoming even more perfect in shape. If the object were disintegrating, symmetry would be the first thing to disappear. But here, the opposite is true. The symmetry is strengthening. This is the very unusual pattern now being discussed by dozens of astronomers and enthusiasts. It's hard not to notice how unusually all this information aligns. The observations were made on different nights, from different latitudes, with different equipment, and under different atmospheric conditions. Nevertheless, they all demonstrate the same thing. 3I Atlas is evolving, but not disintegrating. It is rotating, building up a halo, ejecting material with a characteristic bend. But its internal framework remains intact. This makes the upcoming NASA data particularly crucial. A new series of maximum resolution images is expected soon, and these will provide an opportunity to study the central region with unprecedented precision. This data will most likely confirm or refute the hypothesis of a stable core and an anomalously fast-growing halo. I will continue to monitor every new frame that appears online, whether from professional observatories or amateurs working under city skies. The more data we have, the clearer the overall picture becomes. Stay attentive, keep your interest, and watch for new updates. I am sure 3I Atlas has many more surprises in store.